Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Terry Stafford. He is a former NASA project manager. He is now turned author and writing coach. He lives in California. Can you say hi, Terry?
Hi, good to be here, Brigitte. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm so glad we met. We met through a mastermind, and I'm learning a lot from everybody in that group. And Terry has a lot of great experience with writing. So once you retired from NASA, what made you want to be an author? What was it, nonfiction or fiction? I'm just curious.
I started off writing a very small nonfiction book just because it was a story that I wanted to tell. But I've been writing primarily novels. I sort of identify as being a novelist, but I have a nonfiction coming out. The reason I got into it, growing up, being a writer was the furthest thing from my mind. I'm not one of those who grew up writing journals and, all that kind of stuff. But in my sophomore year in high school, an English teacher gave us an assignment, go write a story about something, and came back. And then, after she looked at my paper, she said, "Terry, you're a really good writer. You tell stories really well." And I was almost embarrassed by it because, in high school, that would be a very uncool thing to do.
Right.
So I blew it off. I didn't think anything of it. And, all through my Navy years, she would come back on my mind every now and then. And then when this whole thing happened at this church we were going to, and I thought, I want to write that story. And that teacher kept popping into my head saying, "You're a good writer. You're a good writer." So I got in touch with a writers guild there in Florida near Kennedy Space Center where I worked, and started going to some of their meetings. And I got into the idea, but it never occurred to me to write a novel.
Right.
But what spawned that is there was a family story that I wanted to tell, kind of a tragic story, a sad story, but I didn't want to write it as a memoir, kind of an in-your-face memoir. So I fictionalized everything, and I built this whole world around music and fiddle contests, bluegrass festivals, and all these things that I love. And I told the story on that foundation. So I got into fiction writing, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Like I said, it was the furthest thing from my mind. Me writing a novel, no way,
It,
but I love
it,
it. Yeah.
that's good. And then if you have that skill, you should right, share it with other people. And I like the idea that you took a real story, and made it fiction, and it
Mhm.
makes it easier probably to share it, maybe.
It does. Yeah, it does. I mean, it was the tragedy part had to do with my sister. And I talked to her about it, obviously, before I even fictionalized it. I talked to her about it, and she was okay with it. She was all for it. It was a painful time for her.
Right.
So I wanted to be careful about it, but she was all for it. And she read the book and she loves it, and tells all her friends about it. And so it's good. It's good. And you wouldn't know, I mean, unless you were real close to the family, you wouldn't know that it was about her, or anything like that. So
Right. Anybody, right. But they probably felt a lot of, I'm assuming you put emotion in there in the story too. Yeah. Like you're talking about the music. Music is very, uh, what's the word? Let's just say cathartic, but there's a lot of emotion involved with music. You're talking about
oh
favorite
yeah,
music.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
when you worked at NASA, I'm assuming you did a lot of writing for them as a project manager and more technical aspect, right?
I did. I mean, there were instruction manuals and systems manuals and stuff like that I had to write or edit. A lot of them was just like a rewrite, from years past.
Right. Updated for our modern language.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that okay? So
Mhm.
you mentioned too that you have a newer book coming out, nonfiction,
Mhm.
and this is going to be more specific, right? I think you said it's project management for
Right.
writers.
Mhm.
What made you want to do this?
Well, not long ago, because I kept thinking, over 30 years of project management experience, and I don't do that anymore, but why let that go? And I started thinking about how I could use that experience. And then I started thinking about my writing and what I do to write a story or to write a book. And I started connecting the two dots, and it was pretty exciting when I did it, because a lot of what I learned in project management, I do to get a book out. I mean, there are, some very specific repeatable processes that you do to write a book. And even all the way down to, what we call a project plan at NASA or in project management could equate to a book proposal, for example.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing in a book proposal, is you're just laying everything out so you understand what you're going to do. So that's how the book starts, Project Management for Writers. And that's how it all came about. I just wanted to use that project management experience to help other writers get organized, is what it is.
I think that's a great idea, because it is a process that people who don't write professionally and they want to, it's probably very helpful for them, because they don't realize all the, I should say steps, but the things in the background they're not aware of. And it is, I think of a book as a product. I also think of it as art. It depends on your perspective, but it definitely, you have to have process, a business process.
Right. And, a lot of people, I've heard statistics that 87% of people want to write a book, and only like 3% of them start a book.
Wow.
And, less than half of that, maybe another 3% of that actually follow through and do it. Wow. And it's a hard, and everybody's been told sometime in their life, you need to write a book, or, maybe you've been sitting around the Thanksgiving dinner table thinking, I need to write a book. Well, you should. I mean, everybody should write a book. And, but oftentimes you just don't know where to start. So, the book Project Management for Writers is kind of for new authors or people that just want to write their story. But it's also for experienced authors who because a lot of times you'll sit down to write your second or third or even fourth book, and you're thinking, I don't know where to start, and it's like, you've already done this. They feel like every time they open that new document to start a new book, they don't know where to start. It's like they've never done it before. So it's for them too. It's for experienced authors too. So it's just to get organized, to get your writing practice organized. The book doesn't get into publishing and all that, because a lot of people want to write a book, but they don't really care to make it public. They may be writing a family story,
right?
A book to give away at Christmas or something to family members, or to capture family histories and such as that the general population really wouldn't be interested in. So there are those people. So I really stopped at the writing practice, what you do at home, at your desk, and how do you get that organized? So that's what that's about.
I love that aspect, because what I've heard from other people who say they want to write a book, their major fear is they don't want it to be public. Right.
Right.
And like
right.
you point out, it's their feeling they're going to be judged. Right. Mm-hmm. And a book is kind of permanent.
Yeah.
But there are so many options out there now because of the quote self-publishing and the technology to print something in shorter run. So I love the idea as a Christmas gift or birthday gift for somebody. Sure. Right.
Yeah. Especially family histories. I mean, genealogy has gotten pretty big over the last 10 or 15 years.
Right.
And my wife even wrote a book about my family, the Stafford family. And
wow.
I mean, it was very well received, and but it's just to capture that history. You wouldn't put that on Amazon. I mean,
no.
Nobody cares, but people want to see it, family and friends, and they want to see it. So that is a very good reason to write a book.
Right. It's just a part of your legacy in a way. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's a physical thing and not just, I don't know if would you do an ebook version of something like that? I was just curious.
Perhaps. I could see, yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier distribution. I mean, you could get that out to your whole family in a heartbeat.
Yes.
So yeah, I could see that.
Right. That's something too. I noticed when ebooks came out, it was like maybe 20 years ago, or is that what you call them? They started coming out, and that opened the door for more people who wanted to write. Mm-hmm. And because there is a cost big cost to actually doing something physical as well,
Mm.
a print version. And some people, they're afraid to do it because they're afraid of the cost. Yeah.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, with the traditional book publishing industry, you know, Simon and Schuster, and uh, you know, we had gotten down to the big five, and as of last year, it's the big four. Simon
Right.
and Schuster was actually bought up, so the traditional publishing industry is shrinking because you know, they're big behemoth, you know, publishing houses, and it's hard for them to change. But so that's why there are so many indie writers like myself, and
Right.
I, you know, but the thing about being an indie writer or self-published, as you say, is you can't shortcut the quality. You know, the thing about the big publishing houses is they've got all kind of editors and designers, and you know, everything looks professional. Well, even when you're a self-published author, you still need to do that. You still
Yes.
need to go through that process. The only thing is you're doing it yourself. You know, you're looking for your own editor, your own cover designer, and you know, back cover copywriter and all that stuff. You're doing that yourself now, but you still have to do it. You can't short circuit that.
Well,
So
I'm assuming you're going to mention that in your book, right? The project management providers, because, or is that you're just,
absolutely.
I think that's something for them to consider. Like you mentioned, the big major publishers, I used to work for one long time ago, and they were, but that was back when publishers did their own printing. Okay, that's how old I am. Some of them
Yeah.
had their own presses, believe it
Yeah.
or not. It was what called Western
Right.
Publishing, and they were bought out by Random House, and Random House is buying everybody. Um, but I left.
Yeah.
I left around the time that happened. You know, does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so my goal when I was there was to try to fill those press time because they were like running out of. It's just expensive in general. So
Yeah.
long term, I think it's better for people to have access to this print on demand, and that's getting better too.
Mhm.
And I think what you're doing is going to help people get over that fear because
Mhm.
you've been through it, right?
Several times. Yeah.
Right,
Uh,
right. So you
yeah.
have a lot of experience to share.
Yeah. Exactly. And I hope it'll help. I mean, that's my uh, my hope. My dream is that book is going to get into a lot of hands of people who will finally write that book. And you know, I plan to do a lot of coaching around project management for
Okay.
writing. You know, so if people wanted more one-on-one, you know, I've read the book, but you know, I really need a kick in the pants. You know, I want some one-on-one help. You know, I'm glad to do that. You know, I've been editing for other writers for a long time, so I'm an editor, and I'm just, you know, glad to fold the coaching in with it. So
I
I'm
think
looking forward
you're
to it.
right. It just comes natural to you to do that with the words and telling the
Mhm.
story. And I think there's a lot of different types of coaches out there, but to actually help them write, I don't know there's that many. Do you know what I'm saying? So
Right, right.
I'm not aware of it.
Um, yeah, no, and I don't really get into, well, as an editor, I mean, I
Right.
help with English and stuff like that, but I don't really get into the craft of writing in the
Right.
book. In fact, I specifically say in the beginning of the book, this is not about the craft of writing. You know,
Gotcha.
there are a lot of classes on that, but it's more about the practice. You know, how are you setting yourself up to write? How are you setting yourself up to be successful? But you know, I mean, yeah, as an editor, after you've written and you need that kind of help, sure, you know, I can help with the editing, but um, yeah, it's just I'm trying to become a one-stop shop for anybody wanting to write a book, I guess, you
Well,
know.
it also helps so you can, I mean, your experience, your professional experience, you were a project manager at NASA. So that shows, gives you a lot of credibility right there. And I thought that was cool when I learned that.
Yeah.
It's, it's just amazing the stuff as we get older that we can share our knowledge with others. And it does provide, you're like a mentor as well, not just a coach.
All
You ever
right.
thought about
Right.
that, being
Yeah.
a mentor to the young?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. I mean, you know, anybody that wants to be walked through the process, I'm happy to help them through. But like I say, I think everybody should write a book. I mean, there's all kind of different reasons to write a book, but everybody should write a book.
And I'm assuming you also you self-publish this yourself. um, your all your other books, they're all self-published. I know they're sold on Amazon mostly, right?
They are on Amazon. You can find them everywhere now.
Oh, that's
You know,
awesome.
once Amazon picks up a book, it lands, on the Target website, Walmart website, and Books a Million. Yeah, you can order it everywhere once it's in. I think that has a lot to do with in addition to Amazon, I also published through what is called Ingram Spark, which is a bigger printing outfit, and they have catalogs that go out to libraries and
Right, that's cool.
bookstores and everywhere. So through that, when you publish through them, you get a pretty wider audience, I
That's
guess.
good. Right. So people
Yeah.
they just need to know these kinds of things and they're not
Sure.
aware of it.
Mm.
And it's again, I think it's so cool that you're doing this. And I liked how you mentioned earlier how this is just for your family, right?
Mm.
And that's a
Yeah.
really you could do the print on demand through probably, I don't know, Amazon or Ingram Spark, and just do a shorter run that way, right? And not have to worry about doing a big inventory, right?
Oh yeah, the old days people would have boxes of books in their garage,
Yes.
and it was awful. It was awful.
And
But
that's probably what scared people.
oh yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's why I say everybody needs to write a book. There's a lot to know, but it's all very doable. And once you see it, it's not all that daunting. I mean, and there's lots of reasons. Like I say, one of the reasons we've already talked about was family. Capturing family things. But you might want to write a book if you're a professional, a doctor, a lawyer, or something, and you've got an office. You might want a book with your name on it just to sit on the coffee table and give to your clients. So that, that's another reason. You may want to have a book if you're a public speaker for back of the room sales. You want that book to give you that authority. You've got a book with your name on it. Now you're an expert. And you could, if you're a coach, you need to write a book. Kind of like project management for writers, it gives you credibility, and it gives you something to give your clients, if you just even want to give it away as part of a coaching package or something like that. So there's just so many reasons to write a book. And
I wanted to share really, because you were talking about all this stuff, all other things you could do. I had a funny story. I was just at the store the other day to pick up something that I ordered online. It was at Kohl's. And there was a book kiosk by the line. And I was looking at books. That's what I do. I touch and feel. And this woman in front of me, I had my mask on, but she did not. And she was asking me about books. And I said, how I like books. And I said, I used to work at this particular publisher. And she was just like shocked. People just like in awe if you are in the book business, no matter what, an author. And I was trying so hard. I mean, thank God I had a mask on, but people just think you're a movie star if you're involved. That sounds terrible, but it does give you credibility no matter what. Just right. And I said, well, I didn't write. I was trying to explain to her I didn't write this book. I just was showing her the publisher. It was Random House.
Yeah.
But it's just funny that you just don't know people. That you just want to encourage other people and be a good role model. And I think that's what you're doing. I'm sorry. I'm looking forward to reading your book. I think I'm going to be one of your advanced readers. I want to read it because I'm sure I'm going to learn. We learn so much from each other by sharing, even though we're both writers but yours is a different aspect than mine. So if there's the hardest thing for you to do when you started being a writer, what was the hardest thing as an example? I'm just curious.
Well,
when you first
and I was going to mention this earlier, but when you decide that you're going to write, you start getting wrapped up in all this, learning about the publishing industry and learning about Amazon and, how do I do this and how do I do that? Well, don't forget to sit down and write. You've got to write the book.
True.
And because you can get so distracted with all the processes that go on. And I guess that's what I struggled with, is taking the time, finding a place, sit down and write. I mean, it's just that simple. Sit down, open a file on your computer, or even grab a legal pad and a pen. I'm told, I heard that James Patterson, he still writes with a legal pad and a
Really?
pen. Oh yeah.
That's
I mean, he's
cool.
got a whole staff behind him that takes those notes and writes the books for him. But um, right, you cannot forget to sit down and
You
write.
have did you schedule certain time,
Yeah,
block of time? Yeah.
yeah, you have to, and I talk about that in the book as well. You have to set a time. When I'm writing a book, I'm up. I get up at 4 o'clock. I'm usually at my desk with my coffee or tea at 4:30,
Wow.
writing, and so and I'll write a couple hours every day now that I don't have a day job. I'm working for myself, so I can write a couple hours every day, and you get a writing habit going.
Right.
It's good to have a specific place to write, and that's your
That's a good point.
yeah, you're writing. This is my writing space. Everything that I need is all around me, um, at arm's length. Just so I can keep writing without being distracted.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
have
there are systems you have to set up. Yeah.
I have to have quiet space. I call it a quiet
Mm-hmm.
space. It was harder for me to write when my kids were younger
Mm-hmm.
because you're just interrupted a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so it
Yeah.
does help that I like that your idea of setting or blocking time every morning, first thing in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. And I'm one of those people after I walk or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just does something for me. I have to like move, and then I know it sounds kind of weird, but everybody's is different in their
Mm-hmm.
method.
Oh yeah. And
And
it may be maybe you don't have an office or a desk to write on.
right,
Maybe all you've got's the dining room table. Don't let that stop you. I mean,
right.
and if you can only write 500 words a day at your dining room table, do that. And like you say, if you've got kids and generally your house is in a big ruckus all day long,
Yeah.
get up earlier. Get up an hour before the family gets up, and write 500 words and just keep going.
I,
It, it, being it be Having it become a habit is a real important thing.
I like that. And to me, I think my advice, I'm assuming you do think this too, just start small, right?
Mhm.
Like 500 words a day, right?
Yeah,
Rather than try to do 2,000 words, because that could be over, uh, the
that's a lot
goal.
of time. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It is a lot of time. And then some days you're not going to make it, but just like you said, block out that time
Yeah,
and
and
have a
and maybe it's not every day. Maybe it's
correct.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Perfect.
At 5 o'clock you get up and you write 500 words.
Right. And I could not have done that when my younger son was a travel hockey player. We were like everywhere. You couldn't, you're like in a different, even though I travel with my laptop,
Mm-hmm.
it was difficult. So I did write notes down on a pen and paper for ideas, but I didn't really do my first book
Mm-hmm.
until my son was in high school because it was a little bit calmer. I should say it's just we get distracted by life,
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
and
It happens.
creating a habit is going to stick if you do it in smaller steps and block
Mm-hmm.
out time. That's just so helpful.
Yep. Yeah.
So you also for your project management for writer's book, are you going to have like a workbook maybe down the road because you mentioned coaching?
Yeah, that is the plan. I'm shooting for May 1st for the book to release, and I think I could probably have a workbook done by that time to release at the same time. But even if it doesn't, I'll have one shortly thereafter. I mean, it's just ripe for a workbook,
Yes,
just
yes.
to get your plan down. So yeah, there will be an associated workbook for that.
I think that's a great idea
Mm.
because I'm one of those people. I'm a pen and paper person, and I
Mm-hmm.
will help me develop a process. I have notebooks, but then I go and write
Yeah.
on the computer, right? But you get your process down. For me, that works. And I think that's why I asked about the workbook because that would be so
Yeah.
helpful to everybody else. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I can ask
I
you.
I write I write on a computer as well, but I do
Yeah,
have a journal. I keep a bullet journal, and
yeah,
I've gotten kind of I make sure I write in it every morning, but I've kind of gotten serious enough about it to where I'm using fountain pens, and I just find that that makes it so enjoyable to write in a journal with a
Right.
fountain pen. For some
Right.
reason, it inspires me. Yeah. So,
That's good. It is. I'm not consistent in
yeah.
writing in a journal, but I have one. And it just depends. Mine is like, oh, I got this great
Yeah.
idea, and this is what happened today. That's kind of so I can reflect on that later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing where you get
Sure.
inspired.
Yeah.
Just the journaling is inspiring, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm fairly positive you're going to be successful with this. I really, because there's
Well, I
not a whole lot
appreciate it.
out there.
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot out there about that. It's very specific project management
Mm-hmm.
for writers. You're like, whoa, right? And
Yeah.
so that'll help people. I think it would be applied to businesses too, not just personal novelists. In a
Oh,
while,
yeah.
it could be
Oh, sure.
expanded later to that.
Sure. I mean, yeah, repeatable processes. I mean, everybody can use that. Systems, getting systems in place to where you know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
If XYZ pops up, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I even talk about risk management in there, which
Oh wow.
we did that a lot at NASA. But
Yeah.
and it sounds kind of daunting, but it's really not. All you're doing when you're doing risk management is asking the question, what am I going to do if this happens? What will you do if your editor gets sick and has to go to the hospital, and there you are left, what are you going to do? Well, maybe you write down 2 or 3 backup editors. I mean, you don't have to make a big deal out of it, but
That's a good point.
it's worth thinking about, just something what am I going to do?
Can happen, right? Anything
Yeah.
can happen.
Exactly.
And it's planning. I like that. It's planning ahead and trying to look at the big picture as well as the details. That's really what project management
I mean, at NASA, risk management is a much bigger deal. I mean,
correct.
we're not going to get into the, there, if, they have to put numbers against the risk. What are the odds that it's going to happen? If it does happen, what is the impact if it does happen, and, how you mitigate the risk. So it gets very highly technical. Right. No, we're not going to go there in the book.
No, not with the book. But another thing you mentioned about, risk management, also make sure you back up your writing.
Oh yeah. Back up your files. Yeah.
You got to back up your files. You just don't know because you don't want to rely on, I would be like devastated,
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's maybe one of the reasons I write my ideas down on paper, but what if it burns? Right?
Yeah.
So then you have to put it on digitally.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do talk about that in the book, file management.
Oh wow.
How to organize your folders and all that kind of stuff on your computer. So
this is so helpful. I really think I'm really not just brown nosing you. I really think this is going to be helpful to people.
I hope so. And I do appreciate that. I'm, like I said, anything I can do to help that person that used to say I should write a book. I mean, I want to help them write a book, and
that's so cool.
Hopefully this will help. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're could be a coach and helping all other kinds of things. It'll grow. Terry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. I'm ready.
That's great. So where can people learn more about you? Can they find you a website online?
I have a website, terrystafford.com. Easy to remember. You can go on there and, there's forums, interest forums. There's the one tab that says work with me, and just click on that and fill out a little bit of information, and I'll get in touch.
I appreciate that. And what I'll do, everybody that's listening, in the summary of this, I will include a link just in case if you're driving, you're listening, you can't, so that'll be in the summary as well.
Yeah. And I do have an email list with newsletters. So on the website, you can subscribe to that as well if you just want to follow what I'm doing.
I think it's great. I so appreciate your time, and it's so important what you're doing. I really, truly think so.
Well, thanks, Brigitte. I really enjoyed being on here, and I just thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.